showing people that it's okay to make mistakes, as long as you learn from those mistakes and you admit to mistakes and you're transparent about making mistakes, you can really take ownership of your work and enjoy it.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Tech Leaders Playbook. Today, my guest is Natalie Kaminski, the founder and CEO of JetRockets. Welcome to my show, and thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
Absolutely. Natalie, let's start with just your journey, right? You did not get out of college and become a CEO of a successful company. How did you get to this point? Where did you start? What are some of your struggles? Tell us about your awesome journey.
Well, thank you for this question. I will take my time answering it because
Please do.
I think it requires to understand me. It requires to understand my entire journey. So I was born in the former Soviet Union in Russia. And when I was about 2 or 3 years old, my family relocated to Ukraine, where I spent the next couple of years. And during those times, it was just one big country, as you are aware. And at that time, I do not remember any differences between living in Russia or crossing the border into Ukraine. It was just, one big happy Soviet Union where they tried to brainstorm us and, spiel the Soviet propaganda.
Yes.
I was lucky, and my parents decided to immigrate to Israel in 1990, where I actually grew up and where I believe that my formative years took place in Israel, and I graduated high school in Israel. And at the age of 18, I had an opportunity to move to the United States, which I took. I actually joined my father, who by that time my parents were divorced, and he ended up in the US, in Minnesota. And he reached out after a few years of not being in my life. He reached out and he said, why don't you join me in the United States, and I will help you and go to college, and you'll have a beautiful life, the American dream. Well, I moved to Minnesota, but I've only survived my father, and we've only survived each other for about 3 months before we had to separate our ways and go our own, take our own paths. At that time, I had a $500 to my name and a return ticket back to Israel with an open date for the next 9 months. And so I decided to give it a go and see if I can plant some roots in the US. And I took a job. Actually, again, I was lucky. The time was 1998, which means we were all experiencing this little thing that nobody ever talks about anymore called Y2K. And the world was supposed to go,
explode.
Exactly. Yes, we were all looking, we were standing at the kind of the boundaries of human extinction, as we all thought. But the good news and kind of the upside to that was that it was relatively easy, like super easy, to be honest, to get a job in the IT sector. And all I had to do really was to claim that I knew how to program, and I got my first job.
That's all it took back then.
Absolutely. It's all it took. But it also took a lot of hard work and perseverance because I didn't really know what I was doing. So I spent the next 6 months trying to rewrite a database to deal from 2-digit years to 4-digit years, complete a data migration protocol, and it took me way more time than it should have had I known what I was doing. But at the end of that exercise, I've learned 2 things about myself. First, that, I was really not a programmer, and I had to admit it. I did not enjoy that project at all. But what I did enjoy was to learn about technology and to understand how technology can truly change the world. So I got excited and I said, what else can I do within this world? Like, are there any other roles that I could potentially learn to do and do them well? And so I spent the next decade working in every conceivable role within the software development lifecycle. I spent a few years doing quality assurance testing and then moving on to business analysis. I had an amazing title of webmaster in early 2000s. I was writing HTML and it was exciting. I even did some database architecture briefly and then moved on to project management and product design, which really got me excited. And I feel like that's where I found my niche at that time. And I wrapped up my corporate career in 2007, 2008, where I worked for another small development shop where I was chief operating officer, which allowed me to learn the inside out of the software, of the business of software development, right? So at that time, I've had a dozen years of experience being both the software developer and knowing and understanding the business of software development. So at that moment, I felt I was ready. And the journey wasn't as abrupt, there wasn't like a business plan, there wasn't a definitive date where I sat down and said, I'm going to launch JetRockets and I'm going to build my own business. Frankly, it all started with a freelancing gig. One gig led to another gig, that led to a third gig, that forced me to start looking for my team, which at that time, the conversation went something like this. A client of mine at the time said, I really love the product you've designed for me. Do you have a team that can build it? And I said, of course I do.
Of course I do.
Of course. Needless to say, I did not. But if you remember, there was this website called Elance.
I do.
And I went on Elance, which was subsequently, I believe, bought out by either Odesk or Upwork, one of those two. Mm-hmm. And I found my first programmer. His name was Igor. And, fast forward 14 years, he is the CTO and my co-founder at JetRockets.
That's awesome. Natalie, question for you. A very important one. What's colder, Minnesota or Russia?
I think if you look at statistics and numbers, then Norilsk, this is where I was born actually, and it's all the way beyond the Arctic Circle.
Ooh.
We'll take that win. Yes.
Ooh, yeah, we forget how humongous Russia is.
Exactly.
You can't ask, but that was colder, I'm guessing, right?
Yes, definitely. That was colder, but coming from Israel to Minnesota was a shock, a system shock. A complete shock. I actually remember because I had to start driving in Minnesota because obviously there is no public, or at least at that time, there was very limited public transportation. So I started driving and then, the snow started falling and I've learned what black ice meant. That was not fun. And then a friend of mine actually took a big bag of sand and put in the back of my Nissan Sentra. That was the car I drove at that time because it was tiny and small and light, but that bag of sand helped me stay on the road.
Oh, interesting. Okay. It's one thing to pretend you know how to program, fake it till you make it, right? And it's another where you actually had to learn how to program. And it sounded like you had to program databases, which is very challenging. After accepting that position, really cool story, by the way, how did you go about actually learning how to program? How did you say, okay, now that I got this job, now I got to go actually figure out what the hell I'm doing? How did you do that? How did you pull that off?
Well, I bought a bunch of books. That's one. I also reached out to a few people that I've met along the way who were very kind and gracious with their time. And, they talked me through things. They answered very stupid questions at times. And really, it was a lot of, late nights and book reading and actually even visiting the library at times.
So that's how you did it. And of all the jobs you did, what were the most challenging for someone who was just kind of learning how to program?
The company that I worked for at that time was actually developing healthcare applications. And so just knowing the responsibility that I had, because I didn't want to make any mistakes, right? Because if I made a mistake, who knows? Maybe it would have affected somebody's life for all I knew. So it was challenging in the way that I felt a lot of stress, to get stuff done and to get it done very, high quality and efficiently. And actually, it was that time that I developed passion for my next role, which is QA or quality assurance testing, because as I was programming and as I was coding and I was trying to migrate the data and test the data manually and run all those various database tests, I also worked very closely with a QA engineer on that project, and I saw the type of work they were doing. I'm like, oh my God, this is so much more exciting. They're actually
probably the only person that's been so excited by manual QA testing.
Well, it might be so, but I truly believe that my background in QA really helped me build a much better quality-oriented software development company today.
And JetRockets is what we're talking about.
Absolutely.
Your knowledge and your energy is what your clients love, but your vast experience in so many different domains of technology and programming and QA and product design and product management is probably why you have a really good kind of 360 view of the product lifecycle. What's JetRockets' biggest expertise? Why do people love working with you all?
Yes, thank you for asking this. So I think after the first 5 years in business, young and starting out company, we were basically taking out any project that we could get our hands on, right? Like whoever is willing to pay will do it. If it was a Shopify website, we'll do it. If it was a pretty 3-page marketing site, we'll do it. If it was a, very complex database-driven application, we'll do it. We said yes to everything, but as a result, we've carved out a very specific niche for ourselves that we became very good at, specifically working with non-tech founders and helping them launch their products, their technology products. And I think what really differentiates a lot of these non-tech founders is the fact that, they do not have the technical background, the expertise, and they're really looking out at you as the consultant. So instead of just doing what your client tells you to do, you actually are the one who's making all the important decisions. And that has to justify those decisions and that has to be accountable for those decisions. And I think we've developed a significant amount of skill and expertise in that area, not only developing the product, but also thinking ahead. Where is our client taking this platform? Are they looking to build a platform they're going to do internally to optimize their daily operation? Or are they trying to launch the next unicorn software as a service platform, right? And answers to all those questions, they kind of contribute to making a lot of decisions, from the tech stack you're going to use to the scalability requirements, everything, right? But what goes alongside from step one all the way to production deploy and post-production support is quality. So what we do, we involve quality assurance specialists from day one. Like on the first call that we have with the client, our QA testers, our QA analysts are involved because they're looking at not just, let me test this page you've developed, but they're actually looking at the spec. Is the spec of high quality? Are we meeting the desired functionality? Are we thinking about all the various user stories, user cases that are possible, right? So I think having that expertise of involving QA early on and also working and doing a lot of hand-holding with our clients is our kind of sweet spot. We know how to do it and we do it very, very well.
So you do a lot of pre-planning, really, really understanding the goals of the client to make sure you tell them what they need to do based on those goals. Right.
Absolutely.
Yep. And I appreciate that. And I think they must too, because the biggest problem I've faced and a lot of my friends have faced is when you work with a technical company, especially a consulting firm, they ask you what you want so they can go and build the requirements and just build it. The problem is a lot of times we don't know what we want if we're not technical, right? We have a vision, but I can't sit here and tell you what to do, where everything should be, what the user experience should be, because it's your job to kind of warn me of all the challenges, the scalability issues we'll have if we use this technology over another, or if we don't get user experience design right, what it could create and bottlenecks and things like that. So I could tell that you guys cover that really well in the beginning so that the product is exactly what they want and it scales with the growth of the company, right?
Absolutely. And it actually goes beyond just the beginning stages because, as the product grows, as it hopefully gains users and it continues to pivot and expand, oftentimes clients start receiving or users come with suggestions, right? Oh, I want this new feature and I want that new feature. Yes. And the founders are inclined to appease those users, especially early adopters, right? So they're like, oh, and I want this functionality. Let's build this and let's build that. So it's my job. It's the job of my team to say no. You don't need to build this because one person asked for it. And guess what? We're going to spend, 40 hours developing this feature that's only going to bring you, very little profit, right? Or improvement to your
Smart.
product. So it goes beyond the initial build and it goes into the support, into growth, into maintenance. And I think having a team, a development partner, someone who is not just yesing you to death like many companies do, because guess what? If I did every single feature that my client asked me for, I'd be making a lot more money.
I agree. Same here.
But I probably wouldn't have these long sustaining relationship from year to year
Absolutely.
to year because the clients will, they're smart. They get onto it very, very quickly.
We've done the same, Natalie, where people don't understand. They'll come to us and say, "Hey, we want to hire a DBA, a data architect, a data engineer, and data scientist." And I said, "Why?"
Yep.
And they're like, "What do you mean why?" And I asked them 4 different questions, and I said, "Listen, I can hire these people, and then they're going to come in, and who's going to guide them? Do you have a CTO? No. What's your product roadmap? Well, we don't have one. Okay. So what are you going to do with these people? I explained to them, look, you might end up spending $1 million with nothing to show. So that's the wrong approach. I'm going to bring in a product person, a product executive. We're going to talk about what you're trying to achieve. We're going to create a product roadmap. We're going to do a discovery. Then we'll figure that out. Then we'll do the architectural design. And so, and short term, we do lose money, but I think long term, it's kind of our reputation and the great clients that we've kept over the years, right?
Absolutely. That's my exact approach. Yes.
Nice. You've made it a big point about you being responsible for the well-being and job satisfaction of your employees. How does your philosophy influence your leadership style?
Well, it evolves throughout the years. When if I look back to my corporate years, I remember being, 20 years younger, but also a lot more tougher on people. For some reason, I thought that being a leader meant to rule with an iron fist and to get stuff done no matter what. That was my philosophy. And I was like, just get stuff done. And I really, thinking back, I would not want a boss like that for myself ever. But as I've matured, as I've gotten to know people, as I've learned from my mistakes, I came to acknowledge and embrace empathy. And I think that, leading with empathy, leading through empathy, and embracing empathy as a feature and not a bug, as, if you want to use a tech talk, gets you a lot more. Being in this industry of, our industry is very known for having very high turnover, right? So people come, people leave, people look for new opportunities, and it's very difficult to retain top talent. Many companies think that retaining top talent is only done through just paying more. And the way I see it is there's always going to be a company that can, up your salary. There's always going to be a competitor who is willing to give you more. And frankly, I can't do that, right? I have to make sure that my business is profitable for everyone involved. So what we attempt to do, and I hope, and I believe we succeed more often than not, is to create an environment that people want to be a part of. And that includes not just, work-life balance, which of course is important, but also an environment of freedom, yet accountability. I'm a huge, huge fan of TEAL organizational principles, which essentially says, there's no middle management, soft leadership, but also self-managed teams.
Yes.
It took some time for us to get there because, certain people, especially because we do employ people from Eastern Europe, and, there's some cultural differences there, and people expect to have, a boss who tells you what to do. So it took some time, but with time and with training and with education and with trust and with showing people that it's okay to make mistakes, as long as you learn from those mistakes and you admit to mistakes and you're transparent about making mistakes, you can really take ownership of your work and enjoy it.
Natalie, how do you balance that though with the fact that some people will potentially take advantage of that, right? And won't put in 100% and you'll miss out on your big growth goals, right? So how do you balance the fact that at the end of the day, people are not perfect. And yes, for every great employee that you have that deserves and can handle self-management, you have a lot of folks that can't handle it. even if they want it, they're just not able to. They can't keep up. Maybe they're not senior enough. Maybe they're not focused enough. Maybe they are not intrinsically motivated folks that you can allow them to self-manage. So tell me about that. How do you deal with that, especially with a new employee or one that's not senior enough or one that's not motivated enough to self-manage?
Yes. So we try to create mentorship opportunities within the organization. So we typically, of course, I can't expect to take 5 junior developers, put them on a team, and think that they're going to manage themselves perfectly. That would be very silly and naive of me. So instead, what we try to do is every project is treated as its own separate individual self-managed team. So every project typically has a project manager and a technical lead assigned to that team. And then as many developers, engineers as is required by the product or by the specific project we're working on. And so within that team, yes, we have the project manager, but remember, the role of the project manager is not to tell people what to do, but rather to facilitate and coordinate activities within the team and to have communication with the client, right? One thing that I found that motivates even the most junior person who has zero experience out there in the world is getting to know the client. Getting to know the client and developing personal relationship with the client. Because what happens ultimately is suddenly these people start viewing their work and their projects as not just some, hypothetical, theoretical product we're building for somebody, sitting somewhere in this, overseas that they've never met before. But you put a name and a face and a story to that project, and suddenly people become more accountable and they feel higher level of responsibility for the work. Second is, if they don't pull their weight, they will really affect their teammates. It's not about me. It's not even sometimes about their client. It's about their teammates. So encouraging the relationship building within the team and making sure these people really view each other as, I don't want to say friends because that would be too much, right? And some people do befriend one another, but, just people, your colleagues that you really want, you don't want to let them down because it makes you feel bad.
Yeah.
So encouraging the relationship building within the team and also with the client helps a lot with that issue of accountability. And again, I'm not trying to say that JetRockets is perfect and they never make mistakes and that, things just run as smoothly as possible. Of course, we have situations where, we sometimes have to interject and by we, I mean myself and my co-founders. But most of the time, for the most part, I am really impressed with the level of accountability and the desire to do a good work.
I agree. And I think it's a dream for most founders or owners or even just CEOs or even managers of companies to have a self-managing team. That sounds incredible. I don't know much about Teal, but I understand the concept of self-management. But there has to be accountability. I think that's the misunderstanding a lot of folks think. It's just I'm going to let my team do whatever they want. Well, they're going to run into walls if they don't have the right leadership. But it's a great topic for us to get deeper, and I appreciate your thoughts on that. What was the biggest pain point when you first started implementing this? Right, because I don't think you went from 0 to 60. Right, you had incremental challenges where you launched, people were excited by it, and then you had problems with it. What was like the biggest challenge you had?
There were so many, but so I'm just trying to think of a few. I think the biggest challenge was really letting people understand that everyone was very quick and excited about embracing quote unquote freedom. Right, so do your work whenever you want, wherever you want, as long as you deliver for the team. But at the same time, people were really not willing to embrace the accountability that came with it, right? Because they were also always trying to point fingers if something went wrong. Well, the back end would be saying, oh, you know what, the front end developers didn't do their job. And then vice versa. And then the QA would be like, oh, you didn't give me the project on time. I didn't have enough time to test it, and therefore we released all these bugs into production. And the project manager would be like, oh, wait a second, but the client is, acting crazy. So it really took a lot of conversation And it really took a lot of reminding our team about the values of JetRockets. And I think every company should have a set of values that it wants to live by. And those values should not just exist as a marketing, as a PR component on their website, but those values should be always kept in mind with any hiring, firing, rewarding decision that you make. And those values should apply not just to your employees, but also to your clients and to your partners and to the leadership team. And everyone should be accountable and held accountable to those values. But when talking about values, and I will mention JetRockets values in just a second, what's important to understand is values should always be not just proclaimed as, for instance, one of our values is transparency. It's not enough just to say, oh, we want to be a transparent organization, period. But it's what's important is to make your employees understand how that value applies to their daily work, right? So within our organization, for instance, we have it's written in our corporate kind of documents, and it says that if you're a developer, transparency means speaking up when you think a decision is being made that you disagree with. Pointing out when you make a mistake. Don't be afraid to speak up. Sharing your thoughts, and just being open, coming up to either your colleagues, to your leaders, to your clients, and being open and honest about whatever issue is at hand. Right? So you have to give them concrete examples. And I think over time, as we continue to embrace those values, and again, I'm going to recite them. So the values are results, transparency, collaboration, continuous improvement, and efficiency. Those are the 5 values that we strive to live by. And when we do performance reviews, those are the only 5 things we look at. Literally, we have the spreadsheet and we write them out and we say, okay, I need examples of each value and how this employee met this value or did not meet over the course of the past quarter, for instance.
We do the same. It's huge.
Awesome.
Yes, no, right, on the core values, and then get it, want it, capacity to do it. I don't know if you're aware of that. Is, do they get the job? Do they want the job? Do they have the capacity to do it? And capacity does not mean technical capacity sometimes. It's about, do they have the mental, the emotional, the all of those other things we don't talk about, right? Maybe this person is the most talented person in the world, but based on their life right now and what's going on, they're not capable.
Right people, right seats.
Yeah, right people, right seats, EOS, right? So you're big on that. We're huge on that. I like one that you said. You talked about results. Let's talk about results, because it's another kind of a problem, especially in a company that wants to be self-managing. You have people that are, especially in a tough economy, tough market, look, I'm trying, right? They want to be valued for their effort. Yes, I mean, you got to value people for trying an effort, and that's kind of the world that it's become. We talk about this, right? Our kids get trophies for trying. Our kids, when they play sports, right? Not the tough worlds that we grew up in, which you got nothing if you didn't win. So how do you turn a company's mindset into more results-oriented versus I tried, or so leave me alone oriented?
Well, I think one tool that really helps is opening your financials and being transparent about your financials with your team. So at JetRockets, for instance, one of the way we compensate our people, aside from salaries, of course, is an annual profit sharing. And what we do is we take a certain percentage off of our profits and we divide it between all of our team members, regardless of their salary level or seniority with the company or seniority level of their position. The only aspect we look at is tenure with the company. So the longer you stay with us, the higher your percentage of the profit sharing is. Now, and we've been doing it for a few years now, and it works really, really well. And recently we understood that we need to take it a little bit further. And what we started to do is we actually opened up our books. And, it's no secret that the past year's been pretty tough, especially for agencies, service companies in the tech world,
Absolutely.
obtaining new business has been very difficult. So, I believe that, maintaining status quo in 2023 is a huge win.
Absolutely.
Yes. And so opening our books and actually showing our employees, look, this is how much money your project brought in. This is how much salaries we paid. This is the overhead. This is what's left at the end. And actually letting them see these numbers, I think makes a huge difference.
Especially if you're doing a profit sharing, because that's anyone that's inefficient and not working is going to be, hey, this person's costing us money, not you.
Yes, precisely. So I don't want them to be, of course, I want them to be responsible to me and accountable to me. But first and foremost, I think I want every single employee to be accountable to their colleagues.
Nice. Tell me about efficient workflows. What's one thing that you do that's really good and very, very efficient from a workflow perspective, technical or business, that we could all learn from?
Well, speaking of EOS, I love L10 meetings. I think those are phenomenal. Those are the best hour and a half of my week, every week. We do our L10 meetings, and for those listeners who don't know what L10 meetings are, is a way to run a sort of a leadership meeting once a week for about an hour and a half, depending upon the size of your leadership team. But it's timed, it's guided based on a certain agenda, and it makes you be as efficient as one can imagine. So to me, running those L10 meetings being just life-changing. Because I tend to go off tangent quite a bit when I meet and with my managers and we can talk about stuff and stuff comes up in the meeting and then we forget about the agenda and we go off and start talking about something else, and at the end of those long meetings I realize, well, wait a second, we haven't solved anything. And so sticking to the agenda and sticking to the structure of L10 meetings has been just life-saving. So
Huge.
Yeah, absolutely.
Same
and then
here.
But the second, yeah, awesome. But then the second thing I want to mention, so this was more on the business side, right? But on the sort of technical side, every programmer in the world probably, or most, want to work with new and sexy and exciting technologies that are just coming out there. And, everybody wants to try something new, touch some new technologies. It's never been done before. But at JetRockets, we really believe in relying on stable and proven and, old and good, so to speak. So if there is a way to accomplish a certain technical task using a boring, stable, and proven solution over something new and exciting that might or may not work, we always default to the boring way.
Because it's for the client. It's not for you.
It's for the client.
Yeah. What is an oldie but a goodie? C, C++, C#, Java? What do you all program in?
Ruby and Rails.
Okay. Wow.
Yes.
Okay. That is definitely a less popular one these days, but gets the job done.
Well, yes and no. I mean, Ruby's been dying for 15 years, but
that's
something that's dying, dying for 15 years is probably not about to die.
Yeah. Actually, quite a few clients use Ruby on Rails.
Yes. And so for us, it's been a very trusted and proven technology that we default to whenever, whatever the client doesn't have any preferences. Of course, once in a while, we meet the client that requires something else, and that's okay too. And again, of course, if we were to develop, a large language model or, an AI solution, we would probably use Python. It's a better tool for that. But again, talking about,
core systems. Don't need to reinvent the wheel. Do what's right. Natalie, what's your go-to software for your EOS? Are you in 90? What do you use?
We're actually using Notion.
Notion.
Yeah, it's not specifically built for EOS. Notion is sort of a knowledge-based document management kind of information sharing system that we use internally to disseminate information within our corporation. But also we've built out a template for EOS within Notion, and it just works great.
Interesting. We used 90.io and it's got it all built in, so we didn't want to reinvent the wheel. I mean, EOS was one of the most painful things we've ever implemented, but it really turned us from a kind of a small business to a scaling, real business, right? Because it created efficiencies, it created a flow, it created things, and it was painful for that existing team at the time. Some of them really fought it because it meant accountability. It meant being organized. It meant documentation. It meant all those things that drove people crazy. But I think as new people came in, it was just the norm, and it was actually very nice because they were like, "Oh, you guys actually have a system you use to run a business." So it was huge for us. Painful, but huge.
We're relatively new to EOS. We've been only running EOS since January of this year.
Oh,
We're
wow.
babies, yes. And but I can share a couple of things. We just had our second quarterly last week, but I can share something with you. At first, when we first started implementing EOS, we decided to review our accountability chart, and so, or instead of create our accountability chart,
Yes.
right? We didn't have
Yes.
one before. And so we sat down and we thought out about how to go about it. And we created this beautiful chart with, I'm the visionary at the top, and then we've got our integrator. And then, we put the right people in the right seat, and we created people who were accountable for our back-end engineering, front-end engineering, QA, PM separately, right? And we said, well, this makes sense. This is going to be beautiful. Let's do this. And we did it for about 6 months. And this past quarterly meeting, we admitted to ourselves that it doesn't work for us. And we have to go back to the old way of doing things, which is we're going to create accountability within small project teams.
Oh, interesting.
The reason I mention it is it's okay to try out new things and then to go back to what worked. It's
Yes.
perfectly fine to try out new things. You should be trying out new things. And you should not be afraid to admit that, this is not quite for us.
Do you use an implementer or did you do it yourself?
We do use an implementer. He's incredible. He really holds us accountable, which is great.
We did the same. So I'm a veteran. I've been doing EOS for probably 4 years, and
We should talk more.
ooh, it's painful. Lots of painful, but it's automatic now. I think we need a refresher course. We don't use an implementer anymore. I've created kind of an integrator within the company, but it's challenging. We're still learning and adjusting and all that. Natalie, tell me a little bit about, obviously with the war, without getting too political, many countries, companies, tech companies specifically, left Russia to go to Georgia or Armenia, one of the Caucasus countries, to start move their companies there. And it seems like it's been very successful. Like, why did you decide to do that? What made you take your team out of there very quickly?
Oh, it was a no-brainer, frankly. The moment we realized that this war, and well, frankly, I personally knew, I'm proud to say that not even for a second did I think that Ukraine is going to fall within 3 days. So when Russia attacked Ukraine, I immediately sensed, and I'm like, oh my God, this is for the long term. And so the moment we realized how huge that invasion was, that it wasn't just like some local conflict at the border, for instance, right? But how huge and terrible that invasion was, I immediately said, we got to get out of here because, we've never done any business in Russia. We've never had any clients in Russia, but we did have a development center in Russia that housed about 50 people at the start of the war. And I paid their salaries, which means that I also paid their taxes. And to me, it was completely unacceptable. And, yes, one could argue, oh, those are just pennies, who cares about those little amounts? I don't care. I believe that every cent counts. And I did not want to be implicated in this atrocity.
Absolutely.
So to me, it was a no-brainer. My team was relocated out of Russia within the first couple of months since the invasion began. And the only reason it took that long was because it was very difficult to buy tickets, and airplanes were there was limited air traffic, and there still is limited air traffic, and getting tickets for everyone took a lot of effort, and it wasn't easy. But I'm very proud to say that we got everyone out of Russia. Well, with the exception of those who was not willing to go. I was happy, I'm happy to report that about 75% of the company came with us. And it was, it was a very tough year, but it was also a very unifying experience for the organization.
Oh, I bet. How did you, as a small company, afford to make moves like that? Because that's not easy.
We spent about $250,000 on the move.
Wow.
If you include expenses associated with the actual relocation, but also you have to think, we had to let go of our office. We had to open up new office space in Batumi, Georgia. We had to bump everybody's salaries because life in Georgia, has a higher rate of living expenses than in Russia, for instance. So we had to adjust for that. So we spent about $250,000. And frankly, I never stopped and thought about that. It was not up for discussion. It was never there was no financial calculation involved in that process.
It sounds like it was more of just a when and how decision.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
We make decisions. We make decisions and we support with our pockets. So that's an interesting topic. As a proud Armenian Greek, for me, is when I will not go to Turkey because every dollar I spend there is a bullet to kill my people. Frankly, let's be honest, it's happening right now. So, for example, I took a big cruise, got off a bunch of different beautiful Greek towns, and then went to Ephesus. Did not spend one penny there. I got out just to say, okay, I was here. Let's get back on the ship. But we forget that, right? We forget that every dollar we spend is a support for whatever that organization or that country is doing. So I think that's great. How do you and I just spent, before the show, we talked about our beautiful families, right? We got kids and we got wives and husbands and all this stuff. How do you balance running a successful company, especially in a recession like this? You're absolutely right. It's been a tough year for service businesses, with balancing that and family time, because they need us, but our businesses need us and we do our businesses for them. So how do you do that?
Well, I think having spousal support is super important, right? So my husband, he is a full-time employee of a corporation. And so his job, while very demanding, also allows him for a certain level of flexibility. Having a spouse that you can rely on, it's very, very important, of course. And he's been instrumental to my success as a business owner since we got married. So I'm very lucky to have him. But aside from that, I must say that I actually like the fact that I'm a woman. I'm a woman in tech. I'm a woman in tech who runs her own business, and I have 2 daughters. And because they can look at me and they can see that it's possible, right? It's okay. I also like to think that I'm a good mother. And I believe that I had to learn, it didn't come natural. It took some time to learn to be okay with certain decisions and prioritizations, right? So sometimes I may say, you know what, guys, I'm sorry, I'm busy. I cannot spend time with you today because I have a lot going on at my work and I have to record a podcast and I have to attend the meeting and I have to, respond to my clients, and be okay with that decision. Don't go and try to be there, but not really be there and just be on your phone all the time. That does not work at all.
Oh, interesting. So compartmentalize, right? So
Compartmentalize,
you're there or you're not there. That's funny. That's a trap that I myself have gotten into, right? I want to be there, but I'm kind of multitasking. And again, we can't multitask. Our brains
neither there nor here, right?
Exactly. You're right. That's a great lesson.
At the same time, though, when I take a vacation, and again, I'm very fortunate to have an incredible personnel at my company, because when I take a vacation for the past 4 years, I must say, I completely disconnect. I just came back from 2 weeks. We spent 2 weeks in south of France. It was incredible, just before the school kicked off again. And I never once opened up my laptop.
Wow. Lucky you.
I truly am.
Did you open up your phone?
I did.
There you go.
But it did not interfere with my,
That's awesome.
with my time with my family. So I think that's important. It didn't happen overnight. It took time, right? You can't expect to be fully, disconnected if you haven't really built out your business yet. So there is some investment you must do up front. You must build out the infrastructure within your company that will allow you for that. And that infrastructure also includes delegation. You have to learn how to delegate. And that was my third point, right?
Delegate and elevate, right, Natalie?
Absolutely. Delegate and elevate.
I love it. We're talking the same language. I didn't even know you were an EOS company. So
I
that's
know.
really cool.
We didn't even talk about that before. Yeah.
What's one absolute takeaway that someone listening can run with today? Something easy that you recommend they do?
Embrace empathy. That's my, biggest lesson I've learned, because if you treat your people the way every human being deserves to be treated, and if you view them as human beings and not so much money makers for you, and you understand that they have their ups and downs, and you understand that mistakes are made by humans, then at the end of the day, you will create an environment that people will want to do better work for you and with you.
Right. Very good. Very good. How can people find you, Natalie? If whether it's for JetRockets or just to get to know you, how do they reach you?
Well, you can find me on LinkedIn, Natalie Kaminski. You can find me online at JetRockets.com, or you can email me, Natalie@JetRockets.com.
Easy peasy. Natalie, you've been a wonderful guest. Thank you so much for taking the time to do this. You're in Brooklyn, so I'm guessing it's only 3 p.m. But thank you for being here and being so open and honest, and wonderful job, and congrats on the growth. And hopefully we'll see you around.
Thank you for the opportunity. I really enjoyed it. Thank you.
And that brings us to the end of another great episode of the Tech Leaders Playbook. I want to thank you for joining us and hope you took away some valuable insights to apply in your professional journey. Don't forget to subscribe on your preferred podcast platform so you don't miss out on the next great conversation. I promise it'll be good. If you enjoyed today's episode, we'd appreciate if you could leave us a review. Your feedback not only helps us improve, but also help others discover the podcast. Better leaders mean better working environments. Better working environments leads to happier people. I'm Avetis Antaplyan, and this has been the Tech Leaders Playbook. Keep leading, keep learning, keep giving, and I'll see you on the next one. Until then, stay inspired, my friends.